discover the incredible journey of a poor girl who transforms trash bags into a stunning dress. With dreams stitched from despair, 16-year-old Lila stood in front of the cluttered mirror in the small apartment she shared with her mother. The reflection stared back at her, a canvas of hope tangled in the shadows of a coal mining town. Her heart raced with the weight of ambition, held captive by the chains of poverty. Fashion design was the impossible dream that drifted further away with each passing day, overshadowed by her mother's constant struggle to survive. Lila's sketches, the swirling lines and vibrant ideas, felt like whispers lost in the noise of reality. Today was different. As she rummaged through a local recycling bin for materials, her eyes gleamed with possibility. Amidst forgotten remnants, vibrant plastic trash bags shone like hidden treasures. Their glossy surfaces shimmered in a kaleidoscope of colors that ignited a fire in her chest. Inspiration swelled within her, battling the shadows of self-doubt. Could this be the beginning of something beautiful? It was more than just fabric. It was her escape, a lifeline to a world of glittering runways and open doors. The urge to create pushed her forward, urging her to transform discarded items into art that showcased who she was, a fierce, resilient girl determined to rise. Yet lurking in her mind was the relentless chatter of classmates mocking her aspirations. "You really think that trash can be worn?" The laughter stung, tightening her throat. Would they ever understand that beauty didn't conform to what was deemed worthy? Lila's stomach churned with anxiety. What if her creation was met with ridicule? Would she be the laughingstock of this small town? A girl with big dreams built on trash? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the local fashion competition approached, the electrifying rush in her veins battled against the anxiety coiling tightly around her. Amidst this pulse of excitement, her rival, a polished girl from a wealthy family, loomed ominously in the background, her pristine designs a stark contrast to Lila's vibrant beginnings. "You think you can compete with me?" The rival sneered one afternoon, her tone dripping with disdain, every word carved deeper into Lila's resolve, igniting a fierce determination. But as whispers of sabotage reached her ears, the tension cranked to a new level. Her rival's presence felt like shadows creeping over her creation, threatening to extinguish the light Lila had fought so hard to shine. With a heart heavy from a blend of anger and fear, Lila knew she had to confront her rival. This moment was not merely about the dress. It represented a battle of dreams. All she wanted was a chance to soar, but instead, she was tethered by doubt and the harsh realities of her upbringing. Would she stand tall against this manufactured elegance, or would the struggle of her life bury not just her dress but her dreams for good? As uncertainty clawed at her, Lila resolved to harness all her strength for one final confrontation. The streets of her town, littered with echoes of dreams deferred, awaited the outcome of her fierce battle. Lila paced the small confines of her room, her thoughts spiraling as the deadline approached. Each flick of the fabric in her hands animated her vision. The trash bags she had collected formed more than a dress. They embodied her resilience, her refusal to remain confined by the town's limits. Still, the sneer of her rival echoed in her mind, taunting and relentless. The juxtaposition of their worlds gnawed at her confidence, as if whispered fears were trying to drown her flames of creativity. She laid the plastic pieces across her work table, their crinkled edges transforming under the weight of her imagination. Each layer she envisioned held the potential to defy expectations. But would they? Would the other contestants see beauty where she saw it, or would each tattered bag remind them of her humble origins? No one understood how dreams could be cultivated from refuse. All they saw was the waste. Grinding her teeth, Lila decided that despair would not be her muse. Clenching a handful of colorful bags, she began to snip and stitch, allowing the rhythmic motion to quiet her mind. It became a therapeutic, meditative space, where each cut was a step toward claiming her identity. Sewn with quiet tenacity, her dress began to take form, a whirl of color and texture, an extension of the girl underneath. Yet as night fell, doubt slipped back in. Lila's past slapped her awake, the seasoned memories of classmates' laughter and harsh words bubbling back to the surface. "Do you think that trash can be worn?" Their mockery flicked at her heart like a flame, ready to consume her budding determination. But what they didn't know was that her life, filled with struggle, abandonment, and fear, had gifted her a depth of understanding about beauty that they would never grasp. She paused, staring at her creation and the reflection of herself next to it. That girl, the one who felt unworthy, was finding courage buried beneath layers of self-judgment. The rivalry was not just external. It rippled through her own mind, pitting potential against insecurity. It was crucial now to navigate not just the competition, but her internal landscape. A plan began to form, a strategy that fortified her resolve. She would not hide behind her insecurities. She would confront her rival not just in action, but in courage, showcasing her vision unapologetically. Maybe the other contestants wouldn't understand. Maybe they would scoff. But each stitch in her dress was a stitch into her own narrative, her own journey. With renewed focus, Lila picked up the needle, inspiration dancing like wildfire in her blood. As dawn broke, illuminating her workspace, she understood that this moment was a calling, far beyond the competition. It was about authenticity, a manifestation of her identity that was no longer chained to the echo of doubt. But as rumors swirled about a sabotage plan targeting her, dread swept through her. What had already been a peak of ambition now twisted with the terror of failure. Lila couldn't allow herself to be undone before she even arrived. It was time to steel herself for what lay ahead. She would not just create, she would prepare. With her dreams hanging in the balance, the confrontation with her rival loomed ever closer. What if the hardest battle she faced was not just against her rival, but within herself? With determination coursing through her like a runaway train, Lila made her way to the door. She felt a reckoning building inside her. No longer would she tiptoe around expectations. It was time to claim her power and define what beauty meant on her terms. But would it be enough to withstand the storm brewing? The moment was fast approaching when she would either rise or break. Lila stepped out of her room, the sunlight briefly dazzling her eyes before it settled into a comforting warmth. The world outside was still waking up, but inside her chest, an storm of emotions stirred violently. She had let herself drown in doubt for too long, and today she would emerge from that depth. The path forward was uncertain, but she recognized that her transformation was as crucial as the dress she would create. As she made her way to the thrift store for the finishing touches on her garment, each step felt like a confrontation with destiny itself. The laughter from her peers chased after her, a haunting echo of the past. She clenched her fists, banishing those voices, reminding herself that rejection was the bedrock of innovation. The fumbled attempts, the innumerable questions, "Can trash really be beautiful?" were now fuel, transforming bitterness into a burning resolve. Inside the store, shelves brimming with discarded treasures beckoned to her. A bolt of shimmering fabric caught her eye. Bold and rich, it cried out for attention. With every stroke of her fingers across the material, she envisioned how it could elevate her creation, unleashing it from its humble beginnings. Yet, as excitement surged, a shadow flickered in her mind. Was she compromising her vision? Was she just trying to prove herself to those who would never understand her? These doubts threatened to drag her back into the abyss if she failed to ground herself. She inhaled deeply, redirecting her thoughts to her purpose. The essence of her work lay in the authenticity of transformation, not merely for validation, but as a testament to resilience. She would incorporate this fabric, allowing it to symbolize the bridge between her past and future, a woven story of overcoming. Emboldened, she approached the counter to pay, but as she placed the items down, her rival walked in, brandishing nothing but negativity as she surveyed the shop with disdain. Their eyes met, but instead of fear, Lila felt a rush of defiance. This was not just a competition. This was her life's narrative unfolding before her eyes, the stakes never clearer. Yet as her rival smirked, whispering side comments to her posse, Lila felt the cold grip of apprehension snap into place. The words chosen to minimize her journey played like a record in her head, echoing endlessly until she clamped her hands over her ears, drowning it all out. In that moment, she steeled herself, pushing past her insecurities and embracing uncomfortable feelings. It was time to relinquish the past that no longer served her. Leaving the store, the fabric clutched tightly in her hands, Lila felt alive. Each piece was not just an accessory or an addition. They were artifacts of her battle, reminders that she could transform anything, whether trash, self-doubt, or societal scorn, into something spectacular. Back at home, the sunlight streaming through her window became a spotlight illuminating her work. She would not merely create a dress. She was sculpting a legacy, a testament to the beauty found in tenacity, creativity, and growth. The challenge ahead was palpable, but she could feel the grounds of her confidence shift beneath the surface. Was her journey about to intersect with something greater than herself? What were the hidden strategies she could employ to pull ahead? The competition loomed, no longer merely a contest with her rival, but a chance to rewrite her narrative and redefine beauty, proving once and for all that empowerment often springs from the unlikeliest sources. With resolve crystallizing, Lila glanced at her work table, contemplating the final pieces needed to complete her design. Would she boldly attach those daring accents, or play it safe? Whatever she chose, the moment of truth was upon her, and it was time to make her mark. In the stillness of her room, Lila unwrapped the fabric with a mixture of reverence and urgency. The glimmering surface danced in the light, capturing the essence of her newfound determination and direction. She wanted to create something that not only showcased her talent, but also held a narrative, one that intertwined her ups and downs into a tapestry of resilience. At that moment, she acknowledged that each stitch would connect her with the girl who once felt unseen, trapped in her own insecurities. As she laid the materials before her, she felt the familiar pulse of anxiety creeping in, but it was no longer a beast to be feared. It had morphed into a trusted companion, nudging her forward. The doubts that once paralyzed her now served as fuel for innovation. Each thread she pulled was a defiance of the expectations she had internalized, a rebellion against mediocrity and whispers of inadequacy. The sewing machine whirred to life, a welcome sound that filled her with confidence. With every press of the pedal, she became more absorbed in her work, a rhythm that began to drown out the echoes of past ridicule. Today she would not falter. She would embrace her distinct style, even if it felt audacious. Adding daring accents was an essential step, not just for the dress but for the metamorphosis taking place within her. As she reached for discarded lace and fabric scraps, memories of harsh remarks flitted through her mind. "What can a girl like you accomplish?" Those words persisted like an unwanted specter. Yet, she refused to be paralyzed by fear any longer. Instead, she would display the remnants of her journey boldly, elevating them into art. The afternoon melted into evening, and with it came an unexpected surge of clarity. Lila stood back, letting the pieces of her creation speak to her. They didn't just represent the discarded, but illustrated potential, the ability to weave together past failures and triumphs into something beautiful. She meticulously put every piece into place, each enhancing the next, forming a narrative arc she had longed to create. But just as the final touches came together, a thought interrupted her flow. What if her dress didn't meet the audience's expectations? Would they see the value in her work, the heart poured into every stitch? A positive affirmative was a flickering flame against that dark backdrop, igniting her resolve. Lila shook her head, discarding the doubt. This was her expression, unapologetically distinct. Suddenly, as if infused with newfound courage, she plunged headfirst into a brainstorming session on how to present this creation. What if she highlighted the transformation story? The contrast of discarded materials versus a beautifully crafted garment could inspire others. She could use her narrative as a powerful tool to redefine perceptions. not just about fashion, but about the very idea of beauty itself. With swift movements, she began making a plan, not just for the dress but for how to present it to the world. She jotted down notes, a potential video integrating the creation process, an inspiring backstory with visuals of her inspirations, and perhaps even an interactive piece where others could share their experiences with transformation. Each idea began to connect like the fabric in her hands, building into something awe-inspiring. Lila could feel the energy shifting. This was more than just a dress. It was a movement she was beginning to craft, a launching pad for others who felt marginalized. Yet deep down, there lingered an unsettling thought. Was she truly ready to put herself on display? Amid the whirlwind of excitement and ideas, Lila understood that this path was fraught with vulnerability. Stepping out would require her to confront her fears head-on. The time had come for her to face not just the competition but herself, her true self, in the reflection of creative authenticity. As she looked over her work, her heart raced with the mixture of exhilaration and dread. Would she dare to unveil a part of herself that had long been buried, exposing her journey to those who might judge? In that charged moment, she knew the next step would demand courage beyond her comfort zone. Would she have the strength to take the plunge, risking both rejection and acceptance, all in pursuit of something greater than herself? Tomorrow would dawn, a new chapter awaiting her response, and the stakes had never been higher. Would she embrace both her authenticity and the vulnerability that accompanied it? In the early hours of the morning, Lila awoke with a sense of purpose that propelled her out of bed. Today would not be a day for seeds of doubt. It would be one of meticulous planning and bold actions. As she brewed her coffee, anticipation curled around her thoughts. The fabric seemed to whisper her name, reminding her of the transformation she was on the cusp of embarking upon. She drank her coffee slowly, allowing the warmth to wash over her as she adjusted her mind to the tasks ahead. Each sip was a moment of meditation on her fears, the specter of judgment that had haunted her for far too long. Today, she decided, she would flip that fear on its head. She pulled out her notebook and began jotting down everything that needed to be done to bring her vision to life. Her fingers moved quickly across the pages, capturing thoughts as they emerged. Contacting local influencers, setting up a social media page, and filming a behind-the-scenes video to document not just the creation of her dress, but her evolution as an artist. It dawned on her that every moment spent contemplating the opinions of others was a moment stolen from her journey of development. Today, she would articulate not just what she was creating, but why she was creating it. Yet as she pushed herself to dive deeper into this commitment, questions bubbled up like restless spirits. What was she truly hoping to achieve? Was it recognition, validation, or something else entirely? The idea of gaining notoriety began to feel hollow in light of her greater purpose. She wanted to inspire through authenticity. The more she reflected, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about a dress. It was about advocating for the misunderstood, the overlooked. Could she truly do it without losing herself in the process? She pulled herself back from the edge of existential self-questioning and focused on her vision. The sewing machine sat waiting, a silent companion to her thoughts. She could no longer allow the anxiety to manifest as inaction. Instead, it would be her drive. Fueled by fresh resolve, she decided that the dress would not merely be unveiled. It would tell a rich story, a narrative that connected her to anyone who had ever felt adrift in a world that prized superficiality. As noon approached, she set up her workspace, turning her room into a vibrant creative studio. The soft glow of daylight filled the area while she laid out sketches and materials. The chaos around her felt less like clutter and more like a promise of creativity waiting to happen. Just as she began to sew, her phone buzzed, pulling her into the reality of her digital life. It was a message from an old friend, someone who had witnessed her past struggles. "I'd love to see what you're working on. You should showcase it. The world needs to see talent like yours." A chill traced her spine. Was she really ready to tap back into the past, to confront an audience that had both supported and ridiculed her? But perhaps this was exactly what she needed, a push toward the unknown, a challenge to reconcile her past with her aspirations. She answered with a tentative enthusiasm, inviting the friend to a small presentation she would organize. Her heartbeat quickened as she typed out her message. The idea of revealing her work in front of even a few people felt monumental. It was terrifying, an affront to all the feelings of self-doubt she had harbored. Yet, with every word, she felt layers of her insecurities peel away, revealing a stronger version of herself beneath. The remainder of the day slipped into a haze of fabric and focus. Each stitch pulled her closer to something significant, the kind of art that bled hope and resilience. But beneath the surface of determination lingered a pressing anxiety. What if this wasn't enough? As the sun set, the weight of her commitment settled comfortably on her shoulders. She was not just creating a garment but a platform for healing and transformation. Yet as she stepped back to assess her work, a new fear emerged. What if her message got lost in translation or worse, fell on deaf ears? That night, as Lila lay in bed, she wrestled with sleepless questions. What would she say? How would she articulate the stories embedded within the fabric? And more importantly, would she be brave enough to lay her heart bare to a world that had often dismissed her? With resolution solidifying in her chest, Lila mentally prepared herself for the unveiling. The world awaited, and she needed to summon every ounce of courage, ready to fly toward whatever awaited her on the other side. Tomorrow, she would unveil not just a dress but her truth. And in that moment, a thought ignited her spirit. Would she transform not just the fabric, but the fabric of her very existence? The morning light streamed into Lila's room, casting golden shadows across her scattered sketches. Today was the day. As she stretched, the familiar knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach, a physical reminder of the stakes involved. Transitioning from doubt to action was like stepping from winter into spring. It required courage. And today, she would embrace that. Sitting at her work table, the sewing machine hummed softly as she threaded the needle, a ritual that steadied her wildly spinning thoughts. With each clack of the foot pedal, the fabric surrendered under her fingertips, and she began to lose herself in the rhythm. The sound resonated like a heartbeat, grounding her in the moment, yet the weight of the impending presentation lingered like an unwelcome shadow. What would she say? In her mind, she envisioned the attendees, faces both familiar and foreign. The friendly smiles and skeptical glances echoed in her memory. She had spent too long in the cocoon of self-doubt. Now was the time to risk vulnerability, to share not only her creation but also her journey. Yet what lay beneath the fabric was more than mere stitches and seams. It was a tapestry of her past. Determined to pour her heart into every stitch, she pulled in all the experiences that had shaped her perspective. The struggles, the moments of feeling invisible, the flashes of anger and pride at proving herself. She recalled the late nights spent stitching leftover scraps together, which formed the foundation of her newfound artistry. Every piece represented a story, an echo of resilience, a whispered promise that she was more than what others perceived. But just as she felt the surge of confidence, doubt crept back in. What if the audience couldn't see her heart? Would they only glimpse a surface-level narrative? The worry fit her like an ill-fitted dress, choking and restrictive. With a frustrated exhale, she made a decision. She would incorporate her story into the presentation, weaving a narrative thread through the fabric itself. She would tell them why she chose each material, why certain colors resonated. As the day unfolded, she spent hours crafting a speech that mirrored the rhythm of her sewing, intimate and raw. It wasn't just about showcasing a dress, but creating an atmosphere where her journey would be felt. Moments from her past would surface, uninvited yet necessary. This authenticity, expressing her fear and growth, would be her strength. It wasn't just a performance, it was an unmasking, a revelation of self that clashed beautifully with her fabric creations. Time slipped away as she rehearsed her lines, pacing her apartment while tracing the seams of her dress with her fingers. A nervous habit. Each step brought clarity, and she began to find joy in the narrative she was constructing. She envisioned her friend's encouraging smile, believing in her even when she faltered. Maybe this was more than turning the fear on its head. It was about transforming that fear into empowerment. With the last stitch finally in place, she stood back to assess her creation. The dress, while intricate, bore her essence, a bold splash of colors reflecting her emotional landscape. Every curve and pattern spoke of battles fought and wisdom gained. As she moved to drape it on the mannequin, her heartbeat quickened, electrified by the thought that this was just the beginning of what she could achieve. But deep within, another wave of fear crashed over her. Would they accept her authenticity? Would they understand her message? As she studied the dress, sunlight danced across its surface, casting reflections that seemed to say, "This is your truth. Own it." In that moment, she realized that it didn't matter what others perceived. She had already taken the most courageous step. She was standing in her truth. As evening approached and the shimmer of dusk intertwined with her thoughts, she couldn't shake the sense of looming uncertainty. Decisions loomed large. What if revealing her truth stirred up even more doubts? Standing at the threshold of exposure, the weight of potential judgment threatened to swallow her whole. But as she turned to face her creation, a powerful thought ignited within. Tomorrow she would not just present a dress. She would unveil her truth, and that alone was a political act of defiance against her own fears. Just as she felt that flicker of courage, a new thought sliced through her mind. Would the world embrace her authenticity, or would they see her as an imposter? And in the silence of the moment, she understood that the real challenge awaited her. Would she have the strength to confront where her journey would lead next? The night felt heavy as Lila lay in bed, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. The clock ticked softly, but every second stretched like an eternity. Anxiety vibrated in her chest, an echo of her self-doubt, yet beneath it simmered a flicker of determination. Would she rise to meet the moment or retreat once more into the shadows of her insecurities? As dawn approached, she found herself staring at the ceiling, blanketing her thoughts in an overwhelming haze. What if every thread she had woven unraveled once her words came out? She needed a plan, a way to anchor herself amid the swirling chaos. Lila slid out of bed and into the cool embrace of her kitchen, searching for a ritual to dispel her fears. Herbal tea could provide comfort, she thought, as she watched the kettle bubble. Moments later, she cradled a warm cup in her hands, letting the steam rise to her face. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, visualizing the vibrant patterns of her dress. As she stood by the window, sunlight flooded in, illuminating the colors she'd carefully chosen for her creation. With each brush of light on the fabric, she remembered her journey, the countless hours spent alone, the laughter shared with friends who uplifted her spirit, the quiet determination that pushed her forward even on the darkest days. In the midst of this reflection, an idea sparked inside her. She would start her presentation not with the dress, but with the story of how it came to be. A tale of resilience, transformation, and unwavering belief in herself. A journey wrapped in struggle that ultimately led to this powerful moment. Seizing a notebook, she began scribbling notes furiously on her kitchen table. First, she would talk about the discarded materials that inspired her design, each piece symbolic of societal neglect and her resolve to reclaim beauty from waste. The dress would encapsulate not just her artistry, but an echo of the lives intertwined with those materials. The fear of judgment began to fade as she embraced the potential for connection through storytelling. If she opened herself up, others might reveal their vulnerabilities too. Maybe, just maybe, they'd recognize a piece of their own journey within her narrative. By the time she had sketched out her ideas, the doubt had eased into a different kind of energy, one that sparked anticipation. She was still nervous, yet that feeling shifted from paralyzing dread to an electrifying thrill. Every heartbeat amplified her resolve. Throughout the day, Lila transformed her kitchen into a makeshift studio. She coordinated fabric swatches, practiced her speech aloud before the mirror, and adjusted the dress on its mannequin. Each adjustment was a reminder of her agency. She was the creator. Later, as she prepared to leave for the presentation, Lila slipped into her dress. Staring at her reflection, she felt empowered. The vibrant colors enveloped her like a shield against insecurity. This was not just a dress. It was a manifestation of everything she had overcome. As she stepped outside, the cool breeze brushed her skin, mingling with the warm sun. She inhaled deeply, allowing the scent of possibility to fill her lungs. because stepping into authenticity also meant stepping into the unknown, into a space where acceptance was uncertain. Yet there was a thrill nestled within that uncertainty. Each passing moment felt like a heartbeat urging her to embrace the journey ahead with open arms. Tomorrow's presentation loomed large, but as she approached the venue, a mix of anxiety and excitement coursed through her veins. Today, she would not just speak. She would embody every hard-fought lesson, every wave of doubt that she had navigated. And in that brief moment before she walked through the door, she felt it. The pulse of her truth beating steadily, urging her forward. Could she take this leap, transform uncertainty into self-assurance, and inspire others in the process? As she crossed the threshold, a new wave of determination washed over her. This was her moment and she would seize it. The only question left was whether she was ready to face not just the audience, but the hidden truths within herself that had yet to be uncovered. The auditorium hummed with a low murmur as Lila stepped inside. The air was charged, filled with the overlapping voices of anticipation and doubt. She hesitated at the threshold, the bright lights washing over her, momentarily blinding her to the sea of faces eager to hear her story. A mixture of excitement and trepidation twisted in her stomach. With each step she took toward the stage, the vibrations of her heartbeat grew louder, drowning out the voices in her mind that whispered, "What if they don't get it?" Or, "What if you fail?" But what if they did? What if this moment was not about the judgment of others, but the celebration of her unique perspective? Standing before the microphone, she felt visible yet strangely invisible. The polished surface of the stage was set, but it was her voice that would fill the space. Drawing a breath deep from her core, she began her narrative, painting vivid images through her words that transformed the room from a simple auditorium into a world of possibilities. "I want to talk about the discarded," she began, a hint of resoluteness arising in her tone. The initial wave of nerves receded as she recalled her emotional journey, the countless hours spent wrestling with self-doubt, the transformations and breakthroughs, and the determination that often felt like a flickering candle amid storms. As she recounted her story, she saw her audience begin to lean in, the way they instinctually connected with her tale. There was an undeniable pause in the atmosphere. Lila showcased her creation, revealing the vibrant dress as a stunning embodiment of transforming waste into art. She touched on the materials, how each piece told a story of neglect, and spoke of her pursuit to reclaim beauty from what others deemed worthless. Then, in a moment of clarity, she decided to bare her vulnerabilities. "I was once like this fabric, thought to be unusable." Her voice caught in her throat, the tremor both frightening and exhilarating. But the weight lifted as she continued. "But I learned that sometimes the things we cast aside hold the most potential." Representing her own struggles through these metaphors connected her to the audience in a profound way. People nodded, and she could see a glimmer of recognition reflected in their eyes. Moments of empathy danced across the crowd. Lila was no longer just a presenter. She had become a mirror for their unspoken insecurities, their hidden potential. As she stepped down from the stage, the applause erupted. It wasn't just loud. It was a chorus of resonance that filled her with a deep sense of belonging. Yet, as glowing as the moment felt, she was quickened by the lurking anticipation spiraling to the forefront of her mind. Was this applause grounded in genuine appreciation, or was it merely a fleeting response to surface-level inspiration? Walking away, she felt the exhilaration of achievement mixed with an unsettling question. How was she going to sustain this newfound connection with herself and with others? She pondered whether transformation was a singular event or an ongoing process. In the days following the presentation, the responses were overwhelmingly positive. But Lila found herself grappling with an unsettling anxiety. With every compliment she received, an echo of doubt taunted her from the shadows, whispering that she might never craft something this impactful again. Driven to explore her creative depths further, she began drafting new designs. But now, intertwined with those efforts was the fear of living up to the moment. Each additional sketch felt like a heavier stone added to her already fraught psyche, weighing down the inspiration she had just ignited. In the quiet hours of the night, as the world around her slept, Lila questioned whether the dress was merely a representation of her past struggles or a blueprint for her future endeavors. The momentum she had mustered threatened to slip away, replaced by dense uncertainty as if shadows were creeping back into her mind, and she realized she needed to confront the truth that flickered just beyond her reach, what deeper fears were trying to surface, and what personal revelations awaited her if she dared dig deeper. The stakes were higher than ever, and Lila was at a crossroads. She could either retreat back into her insecurities or take on the challenging journey toward enlightenment and authentic creation. With a firm resolve, Lila made a decision. The next stage of her evolution would hinge on one critical question. What would it mean for her to embrace not just the spotlight, but also the flaws, the intricacies, the very fabric of who she was? As dawn broke, she began to sketch again, this time guided not by fear of perception but by a raw and unfiltered exploration of her soul. And in that act of creation, she felt a flicker of hope, kindling anew. However, lurking in the background was a whisper of a challenge yet to come, the impending confrontation with a critic whose words had the power to derail everything she was beginning to believe in. Would she find the strength to rise again, or would doubt tighten its grip? With each passing day, Lila wrestled with her newfound recognition. The applause from her presentation was no longer a distant echo. It permeated her thoughts and dreams, pulling her into unexpected territory. Creativity, once a space of pure exploration, had transformed into a daunting arena of expectations. The sketches on her desk felt heavy with potential, yet laden with the weight of desire to top her prior success. There were moments when inspiration sparked, and she could lose herself in the rhythm of her pencil gliding across the page. But those moments were often punctuated by the chilling reminder that every creative act could be met with judgment, and lurking within it, the risk of failure. She had to face the insecurity at its core. How to handle criticism that might emerge from the very thing that once defined her transformation. Determined to reclaim control over her narrative, Lila chose to reassess her approach. The whimsy of creating for sheer joy had faded slightly, now entwined with the thirst for validation. In the spirit of vulnerability she had embraced during her presentation, she resolved to confront these feelings head-on. She took a deep breath, approached her drafting table once more, and focused on the essence of her journey, that original spark which had ignited her fears into flames of creativity. In a flow state of creation, Lila began merging her design with her emotional landscape. She drew not just what she wanted to see, but what she felt, the beauty entwined with agony, the intricate dance between rejection and acceptance. Her sketches transformed, revealing not merely garments but manifestations of her inner struggles and aspirations. Yet another layer of complexity emerged as she received an invitation to showcase her designs at a local boutique. This opportunity reverberated through her psyche, a chance to shine anew, but with it came an avalanche of self-doubt. What if the audience saw through her art? What if they deemed her work unworthy? The inner dialogue swirled, but amidst them, a flicker of defiance surfaced. She remembered the applause, not for the accolades it brought, but for how it had rooted her deeply in the reality of self-acceptance. Recognizing the importance of peer support, she reached out to fellow creators for feedback. Gathering them at her small studio felt like extending a bridge across her insecurities. The group shared their stories, each one revealing layers of vulnerability and expression. In their earnest discussions they reflected not mere comparisons but how art had become a canvas of their emotional landscapes, a theme Lila felt increasing solidarity with. Each artist spoke of their fears, and in their transparency, Lila found a collective strength that fortified her resolve. However, not everyone resonated with the warmth of encouragement. Among them sat one figure, Julian, a known critic whose sharp tongue had earned him the reputation of a reality check artist. When asked for feedback, he delivered a blend of insights and blunt remarks that pricked at Lila's newfound confidence. With every pointed observation that landed, the air around her felt electric with tension. "You have potential. But," he leaned in, "it's a thin line you tread. Emotions are easily misinterpreted in art, especially when you're attempting to pave your path as a serious designer. The implication hung heavy like an impending storm. Was this a warning of her falling back into mediocrity? Lila's palms sweat as her heart quickened. Was he correct? Had her desire to be raw and unfiltered led her too close to vulnerability and away from professionalism? In that moment, she stood on precarious ground, ready to either retreat into her insecurities or draw strength from her intention to grow through adversity, much like the discarded fabric around her, fueled by an ambition to probe deeper into her fears. Lila resolved to face this challenge not with timidity, but with an eagerness to explore what was next. If embracing her flaws had brought the crowd to their feet, perhaps confronting her critic could be a step in the process of authentic creation. The moment was no longer just about that dress. It was about her. As the sun dipped down, casting long shadows across her floor, Lila sat determined at her drafting table. She was ready to face Julian, her fears manifesting in vibrant sketches filled with raw emotion. What she didn't realize was that Julian would soon return, this time with an unexpected proposition that would push her to the brink of her confidence and test the very essence of her artistic journey. The day finally arrived when Lila stood in front of the boutique's mirror, draped in her newest creation. The vibrant, recycled materials danced under the lights, reflecting a kaleidoscope of colors that told the story of her transformation. Gone were the whispers of doubt that had once plagued her. In their place stood a fierce resolve. Honed by the struggles she had faced and conquered, she felt an exhilarating sense of agency wash over her, the kind of empowerment that could only emerge from embracing one's true self. As she prepared for the showcase, her heart surged with anticipation. She had taken the initial steps to reclaim her identity, transcending the labels others had placed upon her. The quiet strength she had cultivated in front of the mirror transformed into a silent declaration. She would no longer shy away from the conversation that her art demanded. Lila had become an artist in every sense of the word, ready to share her vision with the world. However, her thoughts drifted back to Julian, the critic whose harsh words still lingered in her mind. She could hear them echo, but instead of spiraling into a whirlpool of self-doubt, she chose to confront that energy. If she could survive the moments of ridicule from her peers, surely she could rise above the apprehension of criticism. She understood now that growth doesn't just come from applause, it also emerges from constructive feedback. The showcase attendees were gathering, their animated conversations filling the air with excitement. As she stepped onto the stage, the breath of anxiety that had once tightened her chest transformed into a steady, rhythmic heartbeat of confidence. Lila began her presentation, detailing her journey through personal turmoil, resilience, and the transformative power of art. She artfully linked the discarded materials back to her own narrative, illustrating how something once viewed as trash could become a stunning masterpiece. In that moment, a shift occurred. The audience began to lean in, captivated by her honesty. Lila realized she was not just showcasing a dress, she was presenting an idea, a testament to the depth of human experience. By allowing her vulnerability to shape her presentation, she had created a bridge to authentic connection. When she finished, the applause roared through the space like a chorus of validation, deeper than anything she had experienced before. The faces in the crowd reflected appreciation, resonating with her story. Julian was among them, his eyes wide with surprise and admiration. This was no longer a contest of superiority. This was about shared experiences and the tenacity of the human spirit. After the show, Lila sought out Julian. To her astonishment, he approached her, extending a hand. "You've tapped into something rare," he said, sincerity replacing his previous harshness. "Your perspective is exactly what modern fashion needs, raw, unfiltered, and a bit messy. Keep challenging the norms." The words struck her like a thunderous applause, filling her with a sense of clarity. This was validation she had once craved but had ultimately learned to forge herself. Instead of retreating into a small corner feeling diminished by a critic's opinion, Lila had transformed the interaction into a breakthrough, utilizing it to anchor her artistic identity more firmly. She had achieved not only acceptance from others, but also fostered a deep confidence within herself. As she exited the boutique, a flood of emotions surged through her: pride, joy, and an unwavering belief in her journey. She felt transformed, no longer a girl tangled in her insecurities, but a woman standing firmly in her truth. Lila understood the beauty of her life lessons. Each stitched fabric represented a tenacity she had developed through pain. Walking down the street, she grasped the importance of sharing her story, transcending fear by letting others in. The world awaited her, not just her designs but her spirit. Each step was now imbued with purpose, solidifying her spot in a world continually questioning and redefining beauty. Lila reclaimed her narrative with a fierce certainty. She was an artist, a storyteller, and a resilient spirit unafraid of her past. Today was the pinnacle of her journey, the moment she finally achieved not just public affirmation, but a profound appreciation of her identity. Now, as she looked toward the horizon, she envisioned a future where she would further explore her craft, inject her emotions, and share her evolution with those who felt unseen. This was not just an end to her story, but the beginning of many more artistic endeavors fueled by authenticity. So, if you've been captivated by Lila's incredible journey from despair to empowerment, don't wait any longer. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly matters. And yes, comment below with your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share this transformative journey instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how Lila turned her struggles into triumph. This is the moment to show your support.